Hello, you, it's me. And I decided to take a little break from the girls and speak on another channel that I enjoy. If political stuff or whatever isn't your thing, that's okay. But for anyone who's interested, I watch a channel called Fundie Fridays, and they talk about political stuff, religious stuff, gay stuff, lots of stuff. And I don't always agree with everything that they say, but I do enjoy a good video. And this video in particular attracted me because they were talking about Kirk Cameron. And I grew up with him. I had a class with him in 6th grade. I knew people who went to high school with him as well. And he's evil. He's just a bad, in my opinion, he is the epitome of evil. And if the devil existed, then he would be one of the devil's minions, because I don't think that he would be good enough to be the devil himself. That's just my opinion only, and that's okay. But Kirk Cameron is just, I don't like him. Let's put it that way. I don't like him. I never did. And he's pushing his religious baloney again. And I've said this before. If you're following something called the Master, that sounds evil to me. That doesn't sound like God. Just saying. Anyway, Kirk Cameron apparently had this big war with the libraries because he had written a book in, I think it was 2022, and it was printed by a Christian company that liked to promote Christian values to children, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, although, I mean, I haven't read any of the books, so I don't know. But, you know, if somebody who's Christian wants their children to read Christian books, I'm not completely against it. But something that Fundie Fridays was talking about is Kirk Cameron was comparing himself to drag queen story time and saying, why are all these libraries accepting drag queens, but they won't accept me? Because of course Kirk Cameron is pushing a specific agenda with his books, which is Christianity, which is kind of yucky, unless he did it in Christian libraries, which is what would make sense to me. But then we think, okay, but are the drag queens pushing any kind of ideology? Because yes, they are, and for some reason we accept that. And according to Fundie Fridays, it's transphobic or bigotry against gay people and so on and so forth to not accept that drag queen story time is very wholesome, family friendly, etc. And to some degree, I agree. But here's the thing. They are thinking about things from an adult mind. They're not thinking about things from a child's mind. And if we try to think about things from a child's mind, what is a 5-year-old, 7-year-old going to think when they see a drag queen? Most likely, they might feel a little confused, or it's just dress up. It's like being a clown. That's not promoting the kind of things that they think they're promoting. They think they're promoting diversity and gender expression was used, but it doesn't really work on children like that. They're children. Now, I know myself personally, I had my first quote-unquote boyfriend when I was 5 because I had a crush on a boy, he had a crush on me. And we used to hold hands, and it was all very adorable, very innocent. But that's the point. It was very innocent. It never occurred to me that I was heterosexual, because those things didn't occur to me. The only thing that occurred to me is, oh, I really like this boy and he likes me, and it's so It's so nice to be around him, and I get all excited when he touches my hand and holds it. That's it. That's all I thought of. I did not think of gender expression, and I did not think about anything else. Now, if you are a person from the LGBTQIA plus community, I think it's the same thing. You're a boy who's attracted to a boy, but you're not really attracted. You just like the boy. That's it. Or a girl who likes her best friend who is also a girl. And they might feel really good and excited when they hold each other's hands and things like that. Same thing. But it's very innocent, and it's a 5-year-old isn't going to talk about being a lesbian or being gay or trans or any other things because they don't have enough understanding of the world. And the reason why I don't like drag queen story time is not because I'm against people reading books to kids. I think that's awesome. The problem is when you get into the more gross parts, which is something that Fundie Fridays didn't address, which is when they hired, I think it was somewhere around 12 drag queens, and 8 of them were pedophiles. That's an issue. That's a problem. And yes, I said the word. I actually said it. We'll see what YouTube does about that. But yeah, the problem isn't the drag queens, because I think most of them are just good people, and maybe they like kids, and maybe they want to read stories to kids and they think it's fun, and they are performative people just in general, which I understand. I'm that way myself. And so you like to perform and you like to bring smiles to those kids and all. I have no problem with that. I think that's great. I don't care if they're drag queen, if they're gay, or lesbian, or trans, or whatever the hell. I don't care. That's fine. I think that's beautiful. I love that you want to read to kids and make them happy and have fun. The problem is, again, that kids don't see a drag queen like an adult does. They may... again, it's more like a clown. It's dress up. And I think that in a lot of cases, some of them, not all of them, some of them take the dress up a little too far, show a little too much leg, show really big fake boobs and things like that. And it's not appropriate for little kids. That's why I have a problem with it. If they just went in their everyday street clothes and went and read to kids, good, do that. But some of the elaborate costumes are just not appropriate for kids. And that's really the only problem that I have. We need, again, to look from a kid's perspective. Now, he also talked to a librarian who had worked at a library where they were having a lot of problems with censorship. And I've always been a believer that you shouldn't censor things. You should just show them, and and that's it. Let people make their own decisions. The problem is that some of the LGBTQIA plus books that are made for children are being seen through adult eyes and not children's eyes. Now, when a child hits puberty, somewhere between maybe 11 to 14, depending on the child and how their growth works for them, something like that would be more appropriate, because that's at the age where they're starting to understand themselves, they're starting to understand who they're attracted to, and there's actual attraction, sexual attraction, because that's the time of their mature awakening. And that's great. And it's good to have books that they can identify with, regardless of whether they're straight or gay or trans or whatever they are. I think that's good to promote in that age group books that are available that talk about these things so that they can get a better understanding of themselves. I don't see any harm in that. What I do see harm in is a children's book for ages 7 to 9 that talks about anal sex or fellatio. That's not appropriate. Those children are not prepared to handle that information. That's not, I don't find that acceptable at all. And the biggest problem that I see with a lot of people that are supporters of Fundie Fridays, which I guess is myself included, is, oh, there's the neighbors again, is that they're looking at things from adult eyes, and a lot of them don't have children. When you have a child, you get the unique perspective of that child, and you can see to some degree like what they see and how they communicate and how their mind turns and how they think. You can see it as they're growing and changing and learning more. You can see that. But if you don't have a child and you haven't had that perspective, then maybe it's harder to understand that there is a level of appropriateness that needs to be addressed. A 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 9-year-old do not understand the world in the same way that a 12-year-old or 13-year-old or 14-year-old would. They don't have the same kind of thoughts. And it just frustrates me because I like Fundie Fridays quite a bit. And again, there's things that we disagree on, and that's fine. But this one really bothered me a lot because I feel like they didn't address everything that needed to be addressed. Now, I'm not on the side of the conservatives either, that, you know, we need to bring God into everything, and we need to teach. I mean, it's good to teach your children about joy and integrity and all that. I'm not against that, but you don't have to do it for God. You can do it for yourself. That's up to the individual. And I don't like when conservatives push themselves onto other people. Just like I don't like when the LGBTQIA community tries to push themselves onto me. I don't like that either. I will accept you for the way you are, but don't push yourself on me. I just thank God that I'm not a child growing up right now, because I am 100% that they would tell me I'm a trans kid and that they would want to transition me into a boy. And I am so glad that that didn't happen to me, because then I would be 20 years old, probably without my chest, with a deeper voice, regretting every decision that was made for me at the age of 14 or 16. I think that's horrendous. You just don't do that. You need to let an individual brain grow and mature, and they will mature into who they are. But you have to give it time. You can't do it to a child, because the child hasn't grown and matured enough to be able to do that. They're not allowed to make their own decisions until they're 18. There's a reason for that. So please, stop with all this shoving all these things into people's faces. You have to look at both sides. Drag queen story time seems to attract a lot of pedos, which is bad. And I just don't think they understand that the concept of a drag queen is not the same to a child as it is to an adult. Same with books. They're not going to understand a lot about gender and sexuality because they don't have it yet. It's not until they get a little older, middle school, high school, where that's when they start to understand their preferences. And then, yes, it should be supported then. But not when they're 7 or 5. You have to stop looking at these things from an adult perspective. You have to start looking at these things from a child perspective. And we need to protect that child so that child can learn and grow into their own as to who they are. Pushing agendas on either side is wrong, in my opinion. Anyway, I hope that's all I wanted to say. Anyway, that's all I got to say.